Hey babe, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, I'm Treasure, and this is the first episode of the second brand new series that we are starting, which is my Depression Diaries, also like a story time where I'm going to take you through every phase of depression that I experienced in a lot more depth than I have previously shown. Now, I have kind of briefly gone over how I was feeling. There are several videos on my channel that are very in real time, however I was feeling at that moment. But I have never talked about it in chronological order, I guess, because I was not filming or creating content in the very beginning of my depression. So we are starting from point A all the way up into now, where I have now been depression free for 1 year, which I am so thankful and blessed to be able to say that. But I just thought that it was really important at this point in time for me to reflect back on everything that I've gone through, because it's time to share that part of my story, and hopes that it helps someone who may be going through the same thing feel less alone, because going through depression is a very lonely thing to go through. So I feel like it's definitely a part of my purpose to let people know that they're not alone, and there are other people that feel what they feel and that they will make it through. So that is what this series is all about. Very vulnerable, very open, and I'm ready to dive in. So grab your coffee, your tea, snacks, and let's get into it. So before we dive in to the moment that I knew something was wrong, I want to preface it with saying that I did not always know that I was depressed. That is not how it started, and I was very unaware of mental health in general. It was not something that I knew anything about, to be honest, because it's not something that was really talked about or that I really grew up hearing about. So I was always the quiet one. I internalized everything, and looking back, those were probably signs that something was off that I just never chose to pay attention to, or even knew to pay attention to at that time, because I didn't know what depression felt like, nor did I understand what anxiety was, even though I was experiencing that as well. I just didn't have a name to put on it. But I think I was also very much a perfectionist. I took it upon myself to always try to be a good friend, a good student, a good daughter, a good sister, because I was trying to meet expectations of people, whether they were putting those expectations on me or I was assuming and putting those expectations on myself of those people. I always took it upon myself to be a people pleaser and make everyone else around me happy. So I put a lot of pressure on myself, and that definitely probably contributed to my mental health decline and eventually becoming depressed. But even in the times where I knew that something wasn't right, long before I was depressed, I never acknowledged that something wasn't okay or I didn't like how something felt. I was very much the type of person, which I'm sure a lot of people can relate to, of acting like everything is okay and going on about your day and putting a smile and, you know, not really acknowledging that something is off, something is wrong, something needs to be addressed so it can be fixed, so you can heal. very much put a lot of emotions, unless they were happy, on the back burner. I did not like to deal with any emotions that were not happy emotions. If it was anger, if it was sadness. While I was very in touch with my crying emotions, I didn't really like to be angry. So those were things that I just chose not to deal with, which again probably contributed to later on down the line me being depressed. Now, fast forward to when I started to know that something was not right. This was maybe around 2018, and I was starting to isolate myself. I was not really enjoying things that I usually enjoyed, but I didn't know what that was. I didn't know what that feeling was. I just knew that it wasn't me. I was usually always happy and laughing, and not necessarily the life of the party, but definitely the one to want to make other people happy. And that was no longer who I was. I wasn't feeling that at that time. But because I didn't know how to address it, or because I was so private and wasn't my first instinct to go and talk to anyone, I suppressed a lot. And that went on for about 4 to 5 months, where I just kept suppressing, and it got to a point where I would wake up in the morning and get ready for work, and I was just really sad. Didn't know why I was sad, because I couldn't pinpoint anything wrong necessarily in my life. I had a good job, you know, I had good friendships, you know, nothing was really wrong with my family. Like, I couldn't really pinpoint like why was I feeling like this. So I just kept convincing myself nothing was wrong. Like, you're fine, you know, move on. And it became a time where I would cry the entire drive to work. I would get in my car and I would just bawl my eyes out. And the entire time I was crying, I could not wrap my head around why I was crying. Like, I would ask myself, like, what are you crying for? What is wrong? I couldn't say. I was just crying. I was just sad. I was just not feeling myself. And as soon as I would get to work, it was like immediately tears would stop, smile would go on, I would do my job. But the moment my job was over, I was back to crying. I was back to being sad. And that went on for about 4 to 5 months of me just being what felt like being on a time clock of, you know, from this time to this time, you have to put a smile on your face and be okay. And, you know, before that time and after that time, you're free to cry and, you know, feel whatever emotions you're feeling, but making sure that no one else is seeing you express these types of emotions. And I think it's crazy how much we ignore the signs that our body is telling us that something is wrong. Like, we have conditioned ourselves, nothing is wrong with you, move on. If you're upset about something, get over it. If you're sad, someone hurts your feelings, oh well, move on. Like, we don't really allow ourselves to feel the emotions of the things that we're experiencing, even happy emotions. Like, something good happens in our life and we're happy for the moment, and then we move on. Like, we don't bask enough in the moment of enjoyment. I feel like we just kind of speed through life because, you know, we all feel like there's no time and we have to just soak up all of these things, and we don't have the time to really sit in the moment of things. And I feel like not doing that definitely contributes to a decline in our mental health, and for me definitely contributed to me going into depression. Once the 4 or 5 months had happened where I was just on autopilot, felt like. All of a sudden, everything just stopped. I wasn't crying anymore, I didn't feel sad anymore, and I thought everything was over, everything was fine, I was fixed. Whatever was wrong is no longer wrong. And I, went on about my life. And around, I want to say, the end of 2019 going into 2020, when COVID happened, I again started to feel these feelings, but this time they were a lot more intense and a lot harder to hide. And it wasn't until COVID happened, when we all had to be at home, when I could no longer hide how I was feeling. I could no longer pretend like everything was fine. My mom is the one that realized and recognized and told me, "You're depressed." And I was very in denial. Absolutely not. Like, I know something's wrong, but that's not what it is. What is depression? I don't even know what that means, but that's not what it is. That just sounds really bad, and it's not that serious. And it wasn't until one night where I just felt so overwhelmed. I just couldn't take it anymore. Like, it was an overwhelming feeling of anger and sadness and just all of these emotions that I didn't know how to express. And I broke down crying. Like, I just could not comprehend what I was feeling, and it was frustrating me because I could not comprehend what I was feeling. And I always in the past had prided myself on being very in touch with my emotions. Now, whether I chose to deal with them or not, I felt like I was still in tune with how I felt about things. So not being able to comprehend the emotions that I was feeling in that moment just further made me angry. And I started to I was hitting my leg, and I was just crying. I think I started like pulling at my hair, and my mom, grabbed my arms, and she's like, "You gotta calm down. You are depressed. You need to accept that this is what's happening." And it wasn't until I calmed down that I was able to like say, "Okay, all right, fine. If that is what it is, tell me how to fix it, because I don't want to live here. I don't like how this feels. I don't know what this is. I don't want to experience this. So I'll accept that that's what it is, but just give me the game plan of how I'm gonna get rid of this feeling." And little did I know that that was not the worst of what I was gonna feel. And now, looking back, if I were in that moment again, knowing what I know now, I probably could not fathom that that feeling in that moment, that was so awful to feel, how could it be worse than that? How could I feel worse than I do in this moment? Because I feel horrible. But the fact of the matter is that was not the worst of it. And being able to now be on the other side and not be depressed for an extended period of time is why I say I feel like I am so blessed, because when it got bad, like way worse, I thought that that was going to be my life forever. And even when it started to get a little bit better and a little bit better, I still thought this was going to be my life forever. So now, not being depressed for a year and knowing what it feels like to have real joy and real happiness, even when things around me don't look like joy and happiness and feel peace, true peace is so amazing that I never would think that I would say something as crazy as this, but I have said it in the past that depression truly helped me to transform to be this version of myself that I am now. And without it, I don't think that I could be this version of myself that I am now. And that sounds absolutely insane, absolutely crazy, because I would not wish depression on my worst enemy. But I'd be lying if I didn't say that I believe that God took me through that journey because he knew that it was what I needed to really transform to become the person that I am now. While I'm still growing and I'm still, you know, becoming a better person every day, I would not have the mindset that I do. I would not have the peace that I do. I would not have the joy or the happiness that I do had I not experienced that. So I am truly thankful for the experience. Now, I never want to experience it again. I can't lie and say, oh, I would do it all again, because I don't think I could do it all again. But I am thankful for being able to have that experience and for it to transform me the way that it did, because I'm not sure that that's how it works for everyone. And there are people that don't make it through. And for whatever reason that happens, I am blessed that I was able to pull myself out of it, and that I kept my faith, and that God, you know, helped me get through, because without God, I would not be here. Truly, honestly, would not be here. That will come up in another video, because there was a point in time where 100%, if you could imagine God descending from heaven and telling you something to your face, I feel like I had that experience, and that is the only reason that I am still here. So we will get to that chapter, but that is the end of the first chapter of when I finally realized that, one, something was wrong, and two, that I actually was depressed, and that now that I know the future, I was about to go on one heck of a roller coaster. If you made it this far, I just want you to know that if you yourself have found yourself in a depression, or you feel like you are heading that direction, I know for a fact that it is possible for you to come out of it. You've got to feel your feelings. You've got to go through the process. You can't rush it. As much as you may want to, you have to go through the process. But know that you can come out of it. So keep fighting, and you are not alone. So in the next episode, we are going to talk about, now that I have accepted that I am depressed, what happened after that, and me fighting through the best I could before I realized that I was not equipped with the things that I needed to get through depression. So if you're interested for the next part of this series, then make sure you hit that subscribe button, comment below, let me know what you think, and I will see you in the next episode. Love you, babe.